Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast on the Serious Angler Network, powered by X2 Power. And guys, today we've got a great show lined up. It is, as everyone is probably aware across the country, now we're starting to get some pretty heavy cold fronts in the Northeast, all of that. In Idaho here, it's finally starting to get actually cold. Hopefully everyone had a great Thanksgiving, enjoyed the holidays with their families and whatnot there. But one thing I wanted to get out before we get things rolling here, the rec lending giveaway. If you are in the market for looking at lending options on a bass boat, or if you're in the future going to be looking at options, it doesn't really make a difference as far as with this giveaway. It's $10,000 in prizes. Check out the rec lending giveaway in the show notes in the link below. And just a reminder out there for anyone who likes watching the Serious Angler content, whether it be any of our shows, those partners of ours are super important to keep us going and everything around our media that we are trying to build here. So please do what you can from a support standpoint. Obviously, we have all our links and talk about these things in these shows. But as we look at Christmas shopping and that kind of a thing, don't forget to look at Omnia, Bass Fishing Electronics, Blackfish, and Do It. So anyways, folks, without further ado, this is a show. It's friend of the show. We love getting on to talk bass boats, just an absolute legend in the bass boat space. And we've done a lot out west together and that kind of a thing too. So without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Rick Pierce of Bass Cat Boats. How's it going, Rick?
Yeah. Morning, Adam. That's good, man.
Morning. Well, you're part of the world. You're getting into that spoon season and everything else, and live scope season down there, Table Rock, Bull Shoals, all that kind of an area. Man, have you been out on the water at all?
No, I haven't, but I'm going to try to go next week. I've been real busy. We've been working on place and kind of stayed busy, and I've been on the road a lot, been to Alabama, been all over, as you know, and I've been on the run too much. So we're slowing down, going to try to fish some next year, try to fish the rest of the year a little bit, and take a week off here around Christmas time, always do usually, and try to enjoy the local area. I mean, it's the first of the month of December. You can just pretty much count on a crankbait bite here, believe it or not.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So that's one of those things I always like to enjoy through the holidays is a jig and a crankbait bite. So I'm going to try to get a taste of that while it's on.
No doubt. That's awesome, man. Well, no, I mean, I was down there, I guess, a couple of weeks ago here now, almost a month ago, down at the Toyota Series Championship on Table Rock. And boy, they ate a jig good. I had a really good jig bite going in practice and the first day of the tournament. But yeah, that's such a diverse fishery. I had never been there before. And I always wanted to. Yeah. And it's just one of those, like, it sets up similar to West Coast as far as clear water, all three species. So I had never been there. I've always, I've been to Lake of the Ozarks, a bunch of the Oklahoma lakes, but for whatever reason, just had never had a tournament where it lined up there. But what a cool fishery, man.
Yeah. I told somebody the other day, years and years ago, we didn't, Table Rock really wasn't on the agenda in the old pro days. It wasn't, Bull was some in the 70s, but really Table Rock just really wasn't a destination for the pro tournament world. And it kind of changed in the 80s a little bit, and in the 90s, and the smallmouth came in. We took the smallmouth out of Bull Shoals, put them in a rearing pen, and they put those in Table Rock, and took the fry to Table Rock, put the fish back in Bull Shoals. And I think we got 20,000 fry off that deal. And the rest of them went into Table Rock, so it's really turned it into a great smallmouth fishery.
Mm-hmm.
Always been a spotted bass fishery. I mean, I don't know if you can track it, but years ago, Dick Collier was one of the local sticks up there in the 70s and 60s, even, but really in the 70s. And Dick did a deal for Uncle Josh pork rinds, jig and eel deal on the bluffs over and catching those big spotted bass. So it's just an awesome fishery,
Yeah. Well, and what was cool to me is something that was different. So moved to Idaho, but prior to that in Colorado, we had a little reservoir called Pueblo Reservoir, and it had spots, largemouth and smallmouth in it, right? It had all three, but they would, for the most part, unless they were chasing shad in a school specifically, where you may catch all three, for the most part, they would be in different areas, and they really would. I mean, you'd catch your smallmouth out on rock piles, you'd catch your largemouth up on the bank, and some of that certainly there'd be a little crossover. But man, at Table Rock, and it may just be a time of the year thing, but any cast, it didn't matter. It could be a spot, a smallmouth, a largemouth on most locations. I was impressed with that. It was cool to be like, what am I going to get this time?
Yeah, that's the way everything here was too. The smallmouth tend to hang different than spots hang different than blacks, and that's just the way it kind of works. But you're up in an area of the country now that's kind of legendary for some big smallmouth, Bub.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it, and it's been cool to. I haven't quite chased down a 30-pound bag of smallmouth, but gosh, I've had some high 20 bags, and it's been it's impressive to me. It's not quite the numbers that you see obviously in the Northeast, but gosh, the quality is, holy cow. I'm impressed every time you lean into one. Those fish are very heavy.
And they're dumb.
that too. That also is.
They don't have any pressure on them up there in Idaho, and don't have any pressure coming out of Washington, Oregon, even on the river. They're just they're almost just dumb. I mean, they're smarter than they were years ago. More guys fishing for them, but it's which we want more guys fishing for them, so that's good. But I had an attorney friend of mine that moved to Idaho years ago, and that was his first thing. They're just dumb.
It's that is my favorite thing about northern fisheries, whether it be the Northeast or the Northwest. It's like, I want to catch them, and those are places you don't get all the seasons. Although it's impressive, even the difference between Colorado and Idaho that I've seen, especially as you get in that northern part of the state, and as you get over into Washington, these reservoirs and lakes and rivers are so deep that they don't really freeze. I mean, you can catch them for the most part fairly year round. If you can get a boat on it, those places just don't lock up,
Yeah. You can get to the water, you can catch them. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah,
so, well, and that's there now. You're up there where you can really enjoy it. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I think I'm happy with the move and everything else around that. So, it's super exciting. And then obviously, there's been some turmoil out west, and you and I just a couple of months ago, we were doing a podcast sitting at the California Delta.
I was in the middle of all that, unfortunately.
Right.
Not by choice and not by pattern, but we wound up getting entrenched in it and took a little hit on it ourselves. Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of money and a lot of time spent, and with a lot of people there, and especially yourself being really the title and backing behind that. And there's, the West just seems to always, I don't know what it is. There's always just some kind of turmoil over throughout the years. Right. Yeah. And I mean, what are your thoughts, the way things are currently set up out West, and where we're at with things? Bass Cat in itself, you've always been a big supporter of the West. You've always viewed, hey, there's some serious opportunity in this Western market for anglers and getting people out on the water in a bass fishing situation and tournaments and that kind of a thing. But where do you feel like things currently stand going into 2024?
Well, I think that, the West has always had its share of turmoil, but no different in other parts of the country. And I go all the way back to, Project Sports and Skull Series and World Bass that we never were a part of, didn't want to be a part of. And thankfully, this one was a little different. And we saw it coming about a year earlier, and it would get kind of patched up, and then we'd see a little glitch and it'd get patched up. But at the end, that fell apart with the organization we were involved in. And I'm going to leave that conversation off the table a little bit. But it broke our soul on it because we were on a really strong pattern and we had grown. So, I based a lot of decisions on that. Trying to grow the West was a mission. I figure if we're a part of growing the West, then the West will reward us for our part of it. And that was the theory behind that. So we definitely wanted to grow fishing on the West Coast, and not just bass fishing. We wanted to grow fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, bass fishing obviously is what we do. But if we grow fishing, we'll grow bass fishing. If we grow bass fishing, if we go fishing, they'll branch over into bass fishing. I mean, you live right next to a state of Oregon that doesn't even have a size limit.
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a limit on fish. I mean, they just catch all the bass you want,
It's crazy.
And it's crazy. And it's a really good market as far as fishing. I mean, the fishing there is great. So we had a long-term goal to turn that on a little bit, and hopefully we can kind of regroup on that and redo some things. Of course, One Bass had a statement yesterday. I'm sure you followed it on what they're doing with the Classic, which I would hope for something different there. I would hope for a little more of an opportunity, but they get thrown in with, I mean, we sponsor several other organizations that are a part of that national team championship of bass. As you know, our strive to have a West Coast event was giving the West Coast guys a championship that they didn't have to travel out east for.
Right.
And that now is obviously going to happen. If you're going to fish a Classic, you're going to drive to Florida for the national championship, or you're going to drive to. We hosted one of the original team championships right here on Norfolk, and I actually brought it in when I was on the AMP commission, and we brought it into the area and hosted it right here at Norfolk. And I mean, it's a good event. It's a really good event, and it's a great opportunity. But 25 guys coming out of One Bass to go fish a national team championship, filtered into another 200 or 250 anglers and their partners, the co-anglers, and so it's just a really it's a challenge,
Well,
Rick, your money on the table and going to do it. So we would really hope to give the West something out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rick, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm not trying to be a negative naysayer, and I just want to voice my opinion on some of that too. Is like I was a little disappointed. I was hoping there's a little bit more there, and there's not to say there won't be in the future with One Bass and Bass figuring something out there. But I really liked the original Bass Nation Federation setup where there was 50 guys at a national championship, right? And then 3 of which are going to the Classic, and that is a really big draw to me. Now with the changes in Bass Nation in the first place to split this up to where it's based on angler Bass Nation membership per state, right? So you're going to see, and this just is what it is, the West versus the East, but you're going to see Alabama have, a way more Bass Nation members than any of the Western states. So they're going to send a lot of guys. And then the qualifications, right? There's the 4 qualifications, all these Eastern Bass Nation tournaments. And then now One Bass is kind of the Western side. But to me, it loses a little bit of the spark of the national championship federation wise, and that's different than the team national championship. But to me, it's similar now to the team national championship where it's going to be 250, 300 boats. Right. There's going to be a large amount in that. And then, like you said, you have the travel side from heading out west. Generally, that national championship is somewhere, not just in Norfolk or Table Rock. A lot of the times it's further, we're talking Alabama or Florida or South Carolina. Right. And so, a little frustrated there, but at the same time, it's progress. It's better than, rather than just Bass forgetting about the West in general.
Well, the West Coast has got a couple opportunities. Obviously, the Federation California is not strong. It could be stronger, and you've got so much opportunity in the federations out west. And I mean, you said the original. Well, I'm going to tell you, the original federation goes back to Bob Barker, and you don't even know who Bob Barker is or was.
I've heard the name. That's it.
Different Bob Barker, but yeah. Okay. But Bob worked at Bassmaster. He was the original federation director years and years and years ago. And so you can go through a whole list of Al Smith, Bob Barkers, Don Corcoran, and John Stewart's, and all those guys that are part of that. And some of those names. But when you go back and look at what Bob's original plan was when Ray started that, it was the federation. It was central divisions and western divisions and all that. And there were 5 anglers went to the Classic at one point. And so they took 5 out of the federation. And, Michael Holt been a couple times. Jerry Justa, who never made it as a top 100 angler, I think he went 3 times out of South Africa. And there were a lot of multiple-time qualifiers. Denny Brower qualified. And so there were a lot of guys. George Cochran was a part of it. And George actually missed it one year, and Danny Ashley took his hole because George didn't hit for some reason. Now, I don't remember what happened with that, but Danny took George's hole. And there's just a lot of guys that are pro anglers that came through that federation ranks. I don't think that happens today as much. It's a different game on that federation side entirely. It's more of that's what it's for, you know. So I think federation has changed a lot from what its original intent was. And of course, then we got college and high school brought into the mix. And you look at it, what they've done with this team championship, it's a good thing. It gives the guys on the team side, and we sponsor Angler's Choice and several other groups that are a part of it. They actually send teams to it, just like One Bass is going to send 25 teams to it. Mm-hmm. And they send each of those sends 5 teams. I think One Bass got a lot of positions. I'll say that.
Yeah, as far as the numbers.
1 for the angler a year and 4 more for each of their open events. I think that's a really, really good thing there. Mm-hmm. But how many guys are going to travel? It becomes that question, you know.
Right.
It's going to be hard. I don't know where the national team championship is next year. I don't think they've said it yet.
I don't think
so.
But,
I mean, definitely the travel is going to be a challenge for them. And, you know, as you said, you go to Anderson, South Carolina, that's a long way from the West Coast, you know. And so, you know, the Ty Owls and the Jared Lintners and the guys that have been out here understand that. Of course, there were guys before them, going back to Mike Folkstead and John Bedwell, and those are the old big John Bedwell and guys that came out of that West Coast market, and you know, Glebe and others. But anyway, they understand making those drives. But that was a pro level deal. At this level, it's going to be hard, and they're going to be hard to compete against those guys in a lot of cases, even though they performed well when the West Coast does come out here. Mm-hmm. And West Coast angling has tremendously improved in a more diverse scale, you know, but sure. It wasn't very diverse years and years and years ago. So they're much more diverse now, and they're doing a really good job out west as far as anglers are concerned. But I would hope for a little better stroke. But having 25 guys, I think they got a lot more than the average group, and I think that's good. But now, how many travel and make that decision becomes the next shot, you know. So you're taking 25; it's a total of 50 coming out of the group. How many of them want to make that run to be anglers and co-anglers, and no matter where they have it? I mean, the best thing for them would be to have it in probably Toledo or Rayburn. It'd be a lot closer to them than anybody else is going to be probably.
Right.
But it's making that run is just hard, and we really wanted to see something for the West Coast guys that they didn't have to make that run. You know, there's been a lot of diversity change out there. Of course, you look at ABA, we're involved in ABA and what Craig Sutherland's done, 1983 organization, proven, small. They've really done a good job for us, still in white space, we call it, where there aren't events. We've seen great event growth in Colorado, where you were from. We talked about that last time.
Yeah.
And we're seeing them try to look up where you're at right now in Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, and try to look at some growth in those markets. So we're trying to get angling growth and still working on that. One of the things that with what we're doing with ABA and what we've done with One Bass, and then you look at what's happened with the breakdown of what was there, and now BAM organization and
right.
Lassane jumping out with Bass Angler Magazine doing his own thing. And I think he's hard on the Pro-Am side and the focus on the Pro-Ams and give a feeder system to those out there. So I told you that thing would do that.
Your phone?
The phone off and it's ringing. I don't know why.
Yeah, I can't hear it at all. So honestly, it's been fine.
You got headsets in.
Oh,
gotcha. No, it's ringing. I'm like, oh my gosh. I turned everything off before we started this call.
You did. You even showed it to me. You gave me the verification.
I said, this went off the other day. It just did it again. Oh, well, me and Apple, we're going to have a conversation here.
There you go.
No, all good. But I think that we're going to see a definite change of things out west. Still, it's going to continue to change. And it's changing everywhere in the U.S., but not as much out west. On the pro side, I don't see the change everybody's all wound up about on the pro side. And I don't know. What do you think?
As far as you're talking the two main tours, the Elite Series and BPT. Yeah, I mean, I guess like you said, I do feel like there's just some kind of things that happen there really abruptly as far as that drop in angler base on the BPT of what they're kind of doing. I mean, to me, that shows maybe there's some issues organizationally, whereas like if the goal was to cut it to that, then we should be just cutting 10 anglers a year or something slowly over the last 4 or 5 years, if that's the goal. And so, at that pro level, man, it's just, it's tough to me in all of bass fishing to make a living, and at that top tier, gosh, it's pretty brutal. But yeah, I'm not as wound up on it, I think, as some people are, for sure. I think I don't know. I guess I don't know where my head's at with all of that.
Yeah, well, my head's that we're going to need, and I said this on another video I did the other day, is purging, and probably need some purging. And we've had purging over the years, so I always had it. And this, I followed this game since I was a pup and knew the original guys in the sport, that when the sport first started, when it first got going, Texas John Powell and Glenn Wells and Shorty Evans was a good friend of mine, and those are all the guys that were at the original Bassmasters event. Rayo Breckenridge, I grew up around Rayo. His brother lives here right now in the area. And so, all those guys that were in that first year and first few years of bass, and the game changed a little bit on them, and they changed and kept up. But I think that over time, you get those guys that are just going to, Joe Montana, as I said the other day, quit throwing football years ago, just like Brady quit, and there's going to be somebody else, but just, Brady's probably good enough to continue to play today, but no doubt Brett Favre isn't, so it's going to change. It's going to continue, and we're going to see those changes. And I think it's been hard for people, because I think Bass did a miraculous job, Adam, when the thing split. I think it did a miraculous job. I think it really did well. They had a couple of tough years where the anglers weren't as good as they could have been.
Yeah.
And, made it easy for some guys like Scott Canterbury and others that make their way in.
Yep.
And, but after those first 2 or 3 years, Bass has really formed and gelled and done a good job. And then I think BPT's got to continue to do what they're doing, which is to merge and change. And everybody wants to talk about these as if they're always changing. Well, there's been a total ownership base of MLF of three companies,
right,
since it founded, and we were the original founding sponsor. And since it founded, you're going to see sponsorship changes, including us, and you're going to see changes in companies and changes in structure, and it's going to happen. It didn't happen for decades with Bassmaster. And it was locked in. Ray Scott, Helen Sevier, and the first agreement was made in this office to break down Bassmaster's organizational. And
wow,
we did it right here. And Helen and another gentleman, and actually 2 other gentlemen, they actually came in, and we did the original structure right here.
Wow.
And that was a long time ago. I respect Helen a lot, respect what we did at that time, and made a huge change in the organization. And ever since then, it's been a lot of change in the sport. Unfortunately, when we did that, we hit it right on top of that 2000 era, which was 911 the year after. We had a really tough market, 2000's a year that there was a fall in the market, and then 911 happened the next year, and it was really tough business years. And so they were a little hard. And ESPN came in and bought it in 2001 and thought they were going to make every event in the country a Bassmaster Classic. And they spent money hand over fist with the management team they'd put in place at Bass. And some of those people are still in the sport, so I'm going to leave their names out of the game,
Right.
But they spent money hand over fist trying to make it something, and it really just never gelled like they wanted it. And so the next thing came up, and of course they've had a lot of ownership changes and management changes. But one of the things about Bass is the Anderson family and Chase's family has always been behind it, supportive of it. And so I think Bass is in a really good spot right now. And I think MLF will find a good spot, is a good way to put it. MLF will find a good spot. So
yeah. Well, I think one thought there that I resonate with, and this is absolute armchair quarterback, right? Like I'm not pretending to be at the top level or anything like that, but I do agree that there has been this notion in bass fishing, and I understand the name value and the namesake with these guys who have been doing it for so long, and there's a lot of value there, but there is always the next guy coming up, right? And these guys that are not performing at the highest level for as long as they have been, if they're not performing at the highest level, that next 22-year-old is coming in, needs a spot because he is performing at the highest level. So to me, I do agree with that. I think that that's always something that has frustrated me with bass fishing years. It's like you look at some standings and it's like, well, what about these kids coming up? And you start to see just that younger age demographic, right? But I think we're going to start seeing exactly like you're saying, a prime of anglers potentially falter out sooner than in previous years where guys would fish way late, you know?
No, Clem's, and I respect Rick tremendously, and he's an icon in the sport, as you'd say, but, he's definitely a legend. And Rick lives in, 50 miles north of us right here where I'm sitting.
Right.
Been up there for years now, and I tremendous respect for Rick. You'll see him eating breakfast in Navy. You'll see him at the McDonald's in the morning, driving through, and kind of bump into him on the road. But I really respect Rick a lot. But I think that when you look at this, is going after his 50th year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to believe, 50 years of bass fishing. And Kevin's got out this year. Kevin's gone, and he's going to go on and do great things. Kevin, I told him at the Hall of Fame, I really respect the way he's taken himself and put himself as a steward of the sport in more recent terms. I mean, he was always in the last several years a steward of the sport, but really focused on it now. Mm-hmm. And probably just where he's at, and you look at guys like him and Jay Ellis and others that are not engaged in fishing anymore, and they're trying to figure out where do they fit? How do I bring something forward in the sport? And Jay's trying to do good things. Mm-hmm. A lot of respect for Jay, a lot of respect for guys like Kurt Dove that's still fishing but still trying to do good things, and just a lot of good people in the sport trying to manage it. And of course, Mike's trying to bring his career forward with the Ike Foundation and what he's doing, and bringing a lot to the sport, not only his career, but also to the sport, and doing a lot to give back. And so there's just a lot of giving back going on right now. It's really, really good to see. So people are really contributing to that, and it's good. And so that's where I think this is going to take these guys as they age on in their careers. Mm-hmm. Those that figure that out will do well. Those that don't figure it out, they'll just drift off, And one of my good friends I visited with this morning, he's several classic qualifier, and friend of ours passed away, Mark Tucker, Sunday. And he texted me this morning, couldn't believe about Tucker, and we all kind of ran together a little bit. And then another guy texted me this morning, was an angler back in those days, and he's like a 4 or 5 time classic qualifier. And Tucker qualified for 8 classics. And, a lot of people don't even know Tucker was an angler at that level to qualify for 8 Bassmasters classics. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you just got things change, people morph, they go on, and some want to hang on to it longer than they should, and some can, like Rick. Rick has hung on to it very well.
Right.
Yeah, and Rick's done a good job. And then Larry made the decision this year to exit. David Fritz, which David and I are friends, and David made the decision to exit. And so there's all that going on in the sport. Jordan's shifting. So. Right. And Jordan, I said this the other day that he probably doesn't understand his learning curve, and they said he does, and I'm not sure he does. These new young men that are coming out with live scope, I mean, there's some of them. There's one in particular in my mind, and I'll leave his name out of it, but he was an angler before live scope.
Right.
And he was a good angler before live scope. Mm-hmm. And he won boats before live scope. Mm-hmm. And now he's qualified at this level with live scope.
Right. And
so he's just taking his career to a whole new level. And so he's going to be a strong competitor. And of course there's others that have got huge YouTube followings that are coming in this year, and they're going to be competitors because they're very good anglers. They're very good anglers, and they're good business sense, and they're good, smart people. And it's going to change the way our sport looks at things a little bit. And so there's just a real change in the market. It's not anything new. Mm-hmm. It's happened for decades.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I mean, history repeats itself, and that is a consistent thing. Over time, things are just constantly changing, and obviously economic potential downturns and things are happening right now, and therefore that everything tightens up and things change. But, one question I do have for you, Rick, is do you feel like at the top level, will we ever get to a place where there is one tour that runs everything?
In time, that's a good question. the tours today, and let's just say three, because there's really only two, but there's three trying to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
The NPFL is trying to do their thing, and there's two good tours that have an ability, and they're two dynamically different tours. The only way that this happens, and I'm not going to say it's like the LIV golf thing, you know,
Right.
It is one of those tours has to consume the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening today. I think 4 or 5 years down the road, it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things about MLF, they have got a total tier. So you've got 40,000 members, roughly, probably estimated, give or take 5,000, you know. And so they've got from the start $300 weekend warrior with BFLs,
guy. Yep.
right? And then you go through. They do have the Bass Federation, which Robert started Cartilage, but it spun out of Bass Federation, and that's a whole nother story. But anyway, they've got that's minor, but they really got BFLs, and that's the meat of that organization is the BFL guy. And I really believe that those weekend warrior type bass anglers are they're the really good anglers that are coming out and supporting that organization. Then they've got a really good tour in Toyota.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really nice deal. I mean, Toyota does a wonderful job in their organizational setup on the Toyota series. They've got some Toyota supporting them. Toyota's a namesake sponsor. It's really a good event. You went to that national up there. I went up Friday and visited. You know, I didn't see you. I saw you walk by, but you were on a run.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm sad I missed you there, but
yeah, but I did go up and watch it and visited with some folks and saw a lot of our guys, and we're glad to visit with some other friends that were there, like Stephen Johnson and I spent some time together and others, and just kind of visited with some of the old heads, you know, that were there. But that's a really good program. And then they go to the tackle warehouse and then go to BPT.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've got a really nice stair step. I think they've got to figure it out. I don't think you can blend those. You know, I don't think you could say we're going to merge Toyota and tackle warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
that
you can do
is a little bit of a struggle right now.
Yeah, I think they're trying. That's where I think they've got some real segment growth issues.
Mm-hmm.
But figuring that one out, and I think they will figure some of that out. And as long as Tackle Warehouse continues to support them, and they've got sponsors behind them, but they've really got a core value. And what they're really after isn't that 40,000 anglers. They're after that 4 or 5 million or 40 million viewerships. So it's a media-driven organization. It's not a publication. It's not a membership-driven organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you got Bassmaster over here that doesn't have that lower tier. They do have the Federation that's stronger.
Right.
And they do have good open events, but they've really got a member organization that's over 500,000 members.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a publication, which James Hall, I met James Hall when he was in college, you know. And so James worked for a little group out of Texas we were affiliated with years ago. I met James Hall years ago. I think Bass has done a wonderful job in the publication. They've got a member base that loves to get the publication in the mail. And you got Bass Times. It's about 100,000 plus, 130,000, 135,000 distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a major publication in its own right that comes out to the members that are anglers, that are tournament anglers.
Right.
Federation guys, all the tournament people get that publication. So you got the Bassmaster magazine, you got Bass Times, and a real member core organization that yet still has to drive media.
Right.
And so they're still driving media. They've got Fox Sports. They've done a really good job on the Fox Sports coverage.
Totally.
Tremendous job on the Fox Sports coverage. And they've done a good job with live stream. So they've done a good job. Do they have the numbers, or does MLF have the numbers? That's going to be each of their own to challenge and rate and level, and the sponsors will make their decisions on where they spend their dollars. I think the biggest thing any of us miss is we've got to get this to we all have to work to grow it, and they're trying to. But we as anglers, you, me, your neighbor, your buddy, we've all got to take somebody fishing, Adam. That's how we grow this sport.
Right.
And that core grassroots thing, I think Bass and Chase has got some work they could do in the Northeast. You know, we obviously tried to do the West. The West Coast deal, we actually saw bait sales and boat sales increase by about 2% of national average.
Wow.
So we saw the West Coast was probably the biggest core percentage of the business for the outdoor market in bass fishing that it had ever been as far as percentage of share.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the price of fuel, the change in the economy, and how it impacts the West has definitely taken that backwards of that by about 2 points.
Mm.
So in
I
the
see.
last year, we've seen that market share in the West Coast, and we talked about the West when we started this, and it's changed. But yet, bass business in the rest of the market is still continuing to grow. So there are some challenges, no doubt, but we're still seeing growth.
Yeah. Now, and you're saying, do you feel like, obviously, the COVID years, big boom in the fishing industry, big boom in boat sales,
No doubt.
massive, all that stuff. Do you feel like when you're saying that growth out west bumped up by 2 points, do you feel like that, is that part of that because of that COVID situation? So if you take out COVID, is it being fairly stagnant? I mean, just in pure honesty, what's your kind of thoughts?
Well, COVID should have been a negative out west because California shut down the market.
That's true. Yeah, you couldn't even go to the lake. Like
you couldn't even open a business in New Mexico.
Wow.
Arizona had its own challenges.
Right.
And so you've got, when you look at COVID, COVID should have impacted it negatively.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't say COVID was the reason.
Sure.
Because at the start of that, COVID, that would have been the driver. COVID was an opponent to that,
Mm-hmm.
And so we definitely, COVID was not, did people go outside? Yes. Did it work? Yes. But did it work any more than it worked in New York or worked in Texas where there was no shutdown?
Right.
I mean, so what drove it? I think a lot of things drove it. I think excitement drove it. I think we had a lot to do with it, but what we were trying to do, we got all the major organizations out there to try it. We invited them all. You listened to some of that. We said, come and help.
Right.
And I think people did. And I think we need to continue to do that, but not only out west, but also other parts of the country.
Totally. No. Yeah, I think that's a great sentiment, and I think that I've always super appreciated your view on the national landscape and the western side of bass fishing. Obviously, it's close to where I'm at and all that kind of a thing. And like you said, that white space area or whatever you said with American bass, right? I fish the American bass. I love it. I love that you can fish your 5 local tournaments close to home and then go fish your championship for a bass cap boat. Like that to me is an awesome organization. And I like those filler situations for out west. It's just such a big landscape, right? Like no matter what, if you're fishing, like right now, I'm a very analytical person and I'm looking at, do I fish the BAM? Do I fish one bass? Do I fish the Toyota series or a combination? And I'm looking at this, but at the end of the day, I'm closer now in Idaho than I ever was in Colorado, but I'm still talking about putting on a couple of 10-hour drives, 12-hour drives, 13-hour drives. You know what I mean? There's just such a big landscape to cover.
You and I have talked about this some before. We really wanted more up in that Northwest market because I think that's where the growth potentials are. And we had that conversation before, you and I did. And I think that we could grow that up in that market. It's just different up there. So I think there's definitely room for some stuff. There's not a lot of anglers, but it's more anglers than we ever had.
Right.
I mean, if you saw the registration by state, you'd say, what are we messing with it for?
Right.
But when we got involved in the West, Adam, the West Coast had been vacated. There had been a shutdown in an organizational support base out there. And certain companies, without naming them, had exited that market.
Right.
And so the door was open for us to come in to fill that market. And we propped it up for a number of years at a high cost. And it was a high cost, no doubt. When you're supporting organizations with 2, 3, 4 boats, it's whether you're giving them to them or selling them to them at a really big discount, there's a cost. And then supporting them. You can't come out west for less than spending $1,000, $2,000 just to come support an event.
Right.
Yeah. Just, you're looking at all these costs. And so some of those organizations were 6-digit affairs to us.
Wow.
So definitely it was important for us to try to prop the West back up. And we think we accomplished that as best we could. And when you do get that going and the West starts generating again, you're going to have new players come in the frame. Some of the old players will come back in the frame. Oh, well, maybe I can do that again. I'll go pick this circuit up. Well, we'd like to sponsor your circuit again. So we're going to see those challenges come up, and we're going to have to make some shifts in that market. One of we don't have a boat sponsorship as a boat company. We do, but not as a boat. And that's like, Randy Pringle does a great job there in that Central Valley there and BBTs. And Randy does a great job. Great event. People love it. Randy's done a good job for years in that market. And so there's some good events there. I'm not saying anything good or bad about any of them, but there's others there. I'm not trying to leave any out, Vince Harris or any of the rest. Vince has got his little following, and New Gen's trying to come back in with a new tournament director, and I'm aware of that. So, whatever New Gen does, they do. But it's a real shifting, and everybody immediately tried to fill that hole that was left by the one we talked about earlier.
Yep.
And I think Mark's going to probably take that hole. I really feel like Mark will try to do that. Now, who follows him and what they do, that's up to the anglers. But we've got a credible guy with a credible publication that's been involved in fishing that we can trust. So I think that's going to bode well for him. It's just like One Bass. One Bass doesn't owe anybody any explanation.
Right.
They've done what they've done for years, and really excited. Yeah, and really excited to have Brad involved at One Bass. He's going to grow that tremendously. Lori's son-in-law, Brad Van Zyl, and he's a good guy, wonderful man. So I think that Brad and Billy will move forward and grow One Bass. And then we look at what Craig's doing, and Craig and Mike Maul and Craig Sutherland at ABA, they're doing a good job. So I think everybody out there is just trying to do it. I mean, we can talk about the guys in Phoenix. We can talk about a lot more circuits and the potholes and all that up where you're at.
Right.
But those are all just different events and different structures, and each of them serves their purpose and their market. And if they don't, then they'll feather out,
Right.
There may or may not be, but what we'd like to see out west is a little more engagement in a more diverse area. And when I say that, let's just say we're fishing, and these are fictitious points, but we're fishing a lake in Oregon. We're fishing a lake in Montana. We're fishing a lake at Salt Lake, which there's not one at Salt Lake,
but something nearby there. I see what you're saying.
But something like, no matter where we pick, but we're fishing Salt Lake, and then we're fishing San Joaquin Valley. Who knows,
Right.
But yeah, there's one or two drives for everybody, but change the platform. And that was one of the original intents when we started what was the Apex Tour. And so was trying to get people involved in other territories where you don't have this homeboy approach.
Right.
And that's one of the things I do know out west. There's a homeboy approach.
Right. I do feel that way a little bit. And that's, and it is what it is. There's the nucleus, I think we've talked about before, of anglers in that Northern and Central California market. But to me, I totally agree. There's a lot of really cool fisheries. I do like that BAM tour this year is going to Oregon. I think that's really cool. But especially just seeing a couple of these fisheries so far in Idaho, there's plenty of 35, 40 mile long, 50 mile long, bigger lakes and rivers that could host some serious tournaments and do have a local feel, right? But I do agree. I think that is something that I would really like to see out west, is a little bit more of that spread rather than everything kind of being so tight to the coast and being in California.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to do Shasta, Clear Lake, and the Delta.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty close there.
Yeah, we're just going to run that circle. Don't worry about it. But that's the nucleus of anglers.
Right.
The nucleus bass anglers on the West Coast, the highest population base relates around the Sacramento, Delta, San Francisco area.
Sure.
That core area is where the highest population base of anglers is. The SoCal market's not that big. Great dealers in the SoCal market, good marketing, fishing companies, a lot of tackle stores, that have built their legends up there. But the real base of the market is right there around the Delta,
Sure. No, and that makes sense to me. But no, a lot of challenges, like you said, and certainly appreciate everything Bass Cat's done over the years there. Now, switching gears a little bit to the national scale. Oh, I got something deep in here.
Your phone's ringing.
There you go. Literally, doesn't it? But On the national scale, bass boat sales, I've had some conversations with different dealers and different manufacturers, and gosh, there's a lot of guys who are saying, man, it is really, really tough right now. There's a lot of guys saying, we're doing just fine. We've got things rocking and rolling. Where do you feel like the pulse on the bass boat specific industry is, and how do you feel with BassCat kind of rolling into the 2024 season?
I just finished a pretty major data study on that last week with the latest registrations and looking at where sales are and everything. And it's up to date. The market's not good overall, so I'd agree with that. But we really got this industry back to 18, 19 levels. And so that's where we're at. We're back where we were pre-COVID. And what we did as an industry and a bass boat side, and I'm just talking about boats, which tackle's already been through this too, and you probably had enough tackle guys tell you this. Yeah. The boat company guys, we didn't do it because we had enough demand. We ran until a few months ago pretty hard, and they've slowed down a little bit here now. And I personally think we could build a few more boats, and with what we've got on backlog, because right now we're out about 4 or 5 months on backlog.
Okay.
And so we could probably build a little bit more product and shorten our backlog a little bit. And some of the models are out 4 or 5 months. Some of them aren't. It's just a model thing, strengthened models, But as a company, we're strong. As a company, I think Phoenix is pretty strong. Mm-hmm. I think Teresa, Gary, Hank, and that group over there are doing a really pretty good job of marketing. They're doing a good job, and I think they're strong. Yeah. There's no doubt in some markets we're stronger than others. In some market, like, we're leading Arkansas, Skeeter leads in Texas. Well, they're home to both of us, man.
Right.
Why wouldn't you be the strongest market in Arkansas or the strongest market in Texas?
Right.
That's where you live, right?
You better be strong there. Yeah.
Yeah. So nitro registrations are higher in Missouri than a lot of areas. They're high, but nitro registrations are high everywhere. But those companies, there were companies that came into this business coming in on a strong 22 and came in, and they had limited demand but a lot of supply, and they really supplied dealers heavy.
Right.
And so dealers got overstocked in certain brands, and the inventory is at a higher level now. I just looked at a Wells Fargo number. Bass boat inventory is high. And so, no doubt, as a whole, the market's not as fast as it was. A lot of people say, well, my gosh, the interest. Well, the interest, and we talked about this some the other day, you and I did on another thing about the cost difference in your age. Interest today is really just kind of normal.
Right.
But it's not normal to you.
Right. And you go back the last 15 years, even, you're dead on. We've been in a low interest rate environment for a long, long time. Very low interest rate. Record lows. And then now we're kind of more at a level that is more average. Now, the only thing that I would argue to that is that cost of living, home prices, all of that has gone up significantly. So, obviously income has too, but home prices and whatnot at a higher rate than income has. So therefore 8% interest today is not 8% interest in 1980, it was 18% interest, but
yeah, there's companies that have gotten a tremendous boost in value without increasing their debt load just because they've got appreciation in their assets.
Right.
And so there's no doubt the cost of homes, cost of buildings, cost of trucks, cars, everything's up. But Black Friday sure didn't show us any weakness.
It's true.
Yeah, it was like 7-8% up. So, I don't know. I haven't seen a number on Cyber Monday, right. but certainly that number was probably there, and I was busy, because that was yesterday. Right. But I'm sure Cyber Monday didn't let us down either. If Black Friday didn't let us down, then Cyber Monday didn't let us down. And so people are still spending money.
It's true.
They're spending it differently. People are more aware. There's no doubt. Interest rates are an impact. And we're fortunate that oil's not crushing us. And I thought oil would be crushing us personally, but certainly oil has kind of held in that $70-80 a barrel range. And that's kept gasoline at a much more tolerable level. And I talked to somebody else in the industry last week, and he said, I didn't even notice oil come down. He said, all of a sudden it was $3 and something gas where I live. And He said, I never noticed it come down from $5 and $4 a gallon. I just noticed one day I wasn't paying as much at the pump.
Mm.
And, we look at things. And so, you drive, how many miles are you going to drive a year?
Oh, gosh. I'm going to say 30,000.
Okay, so 30,000 miles. That's a good number. Some drive 36, some drive 20. I don't drive as much because it's close to the house here, but definitely on the road, I'm driving for business. But you're driving 30,000 miles a year. You're going to burn roughly, 1,500 gallons, 1,800 gallons. It's going to cost you another $1,500, $3,000. Your wife's probably going to drive 20,000 a year if you're married and kids and running back and forth to soccer mom deal. So you're going to wind up with another $2,500 a year in fuel cost.
Right.
And that's not really breaking anybody, but that money's kind of saving us right now.
That's a good point.
Cost of fuel's down a little bit. So I got to feel like that's supporting a little bit of the Christmas expenditures and Black Friday. I watch all the analysts. I watch Bloomberg, which I'm not a Bloomberg fan, but they got good programs, But
Sure.
CNBC, watch all those news channels, Fox News and Fox for Business, and we get a couple of publications. I try to stay tuned into the financial side of the world. And right now, there's a theory that there's this back off on Christmas in these people watching retail. Dude, Friday didn't show it.
Right.
People are there's still some money flowing somewhere. I know savings are back to about, they're back to probably 50% higher than where they were pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So they were tremendously higher than they were pre-COVID. They were like 5 times the pre-COVID savings in the family savings.
Mm.
So obviously they've spent some money because the savings are down, but they're still spending it. So I don't know. I don't have a finger on it. I know our market's good. We're selling product. We've got new models that help.
Yeah.
New models help, and they're very successful in what we've presented to the market. And, I've had that Puma SDS in my pocket for a long time on an SDSO, and we finally built it. And I literally have had that hole in my pocket for 13, 14 years.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Talk about a time to strike when that hit.
And so we really were waiting to get the time right on the product line. Because if you bring out a big boat, wide body that runs within a couple miles an hour as everything else, and your other line's not strong,
right,
you wind up being a one-horse wonder. So we waited till the product line was stronger. It ate the length to pieces. It's eaten on our hybrid 203 sales, but the Puma SDS came off hard, and I didn't get into a boat conversation, just jumped in there on you.
No. It's in my notes. I wanted to talk about the different STS.
But I think the strength of our brand right now, the products that we've built are helping us. And then Caracal STS is probably going to be, and I've said this a couple of times now, is oversold. I think a lot of people buy it because it's new, and they ought to buy a Puma STS, but it's a little cheaper, and I understand that. But it's a good boat. It's a really good boat, but definitely a Puma SDS is a much better ride, So it's just an ultimate ride. Mm-hmm. But the Jaguar's got its own niche in what we're doing with 400 and 500 engines, and you can run a 250. Here's an interesting note, and I said this the other day. If I don't mean to repeat myself on another podcast, but Mark Davis and Paul Elias both went to Puma SDSs out of Jaguars.
Wow!
And both of them love their boats. But they're going back to Jaguars this year because they want the room. They like the rod box layout, they like the cockpit layout, and they're going back to Jaguars.
Wow.
So they're going back to 22-foot monsters that are biggest boats in the market, these huge boats. And both Mark and Paul, and I love them to death, both of them great people. But matter of fact, Mark's probably picking his boat up tomorrow. But both of them are going back to the Jaguars after coming out of the Puma STS. So the Jag STS was the first of that line, the Puma STS second, and now the Caracal STS. And we kind of brought the other line up with that in the premium side because we had redesigned the Cougar and Era just prior to that. So that gave us the strength to move into the market to answer the question of timing. Yep.
Got it. No, well, that's something that I've always really admired about Basscat from that top end not only high quality, super high quality boats, but when you're talking those Jags with a 400 on it, like the big boat market, like you seem to have a real passion there, and there's really not anyone else in the bass boat specific market doing it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a pretty niche, really small segment.
Right.
Not everybody runs a 400R on a Jag. You know, it's just not.
No.
They're not going to sell off 400Rs in bass. Now we worked with Boating Magazine. They've got an article coming up on the Jag STS with John Tiger. Actually was writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we took that thing out on Wawasee up in Indiana, and we turned it up to 98 mile an hour on a little old bitty lake. And the thing is not the speed. That is the most awesome combination we have.
Really?
So a lot of people run it. A friend of mine just had to have one. He's an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And he just had to have one. So he lives in Arkansas, and he called me, oh my gosh, you know, and he hadn't driven it before.
Wow.
He'd never driven it, but you know, you say it's the best, it's the best.
Yeah.
And so he's a good guy, wonderful guy. And he called me. I was on the road, didn't expect a phone call. Man, I got to tell you, this is something I didn't expect, you know.
Yeah.
For a guy that's got the money and can afford to have like the ultimate boat,
yeah,
it is by far an experience that you just can't compare.
Yeah.
And we regulate the 500 sales. I mean, you got to realize 500 is an $80,000 motor, man.
It's crazy.
By the time you get done with the motor, it's 80,000, and if you change the props out and play with them, you might be 85 grand. You know.
Wow.
And so that's a lot for just an outboard.
And yeah, to me, that market is the ultra high net worth, right? It's the guy who may have the Freedom ocean boat, right? And he wants this boat here, you know, like there's
we got a customer that's got two of them, 450s. Yeah.
Right.
And he just wanted two, but he has another ocean boat that has twin 450s on it.
Right. It's not at the same level, right? It's just a completely different deal.
A very, very, very small niche, and I mean, we're lucky we can play in it, and our performance is good, and Mercury Racing knows we've got the stuff to run. Mm-hmm. And of course, Ken Eckert, the guys at Mercury Racing, and you know, all the guys down there, they're great guys, and a lot of the engineers we've known and met and worked with, and they're just good guys, all of them. And so getting involved in Mercury Racing and working with them on the 400s and 500s and 450Rs and all that, it opens up the bridge to learn more.
Right.
And we certainly have, but we left a little performance in that Jag hull when we turned it into the STS.
Okay.
And grew it, and we left the performance intentionally in there for those products.
Mm.
And so, you know, we could have made that boat ride a lot better than that big 22 rides, but we would have took away some of that performance.
Yeah, you can't have it all. Right.
You can't have it all. No, you got to give to get, and that's evident in a couple other brands. But no, it's got it though. I think it's the best combination. But John called me when he got his boat, and he said, "Man, this is just an unbelievable ride." Yeah, how fast you had it? Oh, X. I won't even say number. It's not there yet, but it's there, and hadn't really had time to stretch it. You know.
Wow, that's so cool. No. Well, the last thing, I guess, real quick here, Rick, before we end things, but, you know, obviously we've seen a massive trend in electronics. I listened to your BTL episode with Matt talking about just, you know, you're someone who's on top of it all, which I love. I mean, that you're running as many graphs as the next guy on the front of the boat. And
yeah, I'm trying to learn every day.
Yeah. Well,
in fact, I watched Iaconelli's video last night of him trying to learn.
Exactly. No, I think that's super important, especially in today's world with electronics and everything else. But has that, obviously, you're changing a ton when you're adding hundreds, quite literally, of pounds to the bow of a boat with how trolling motors are getting bigger and heavier. And I see a little bit of a trend going the other way now, lightening those down. But graphs and mounts and all of this stuff, and then lithium batteries in the back, you're taking weight out of the back. I mean, has that changed the way that Basscat is looking at building boats in the future, or what are your kind of thoughts with how things are changing on the platforms themselves?
I think that we're at a bridge right now that we've got to figure out some things to develop. And it could be multiple smaller batteries that no one's got, and Mercury's probably not going to approve right off the bat.
Interesting. As
yeah,
far as to put them in different places, or what do you mean?
I think there's ways we can increase our capacity of batteries, and I think we need to. I don't think we've got that platform yet.
Okay.
So we're not there. And I didn't say this. You didn't hear me say this the other day. So this is fresh.
All right.
I think we've got some platform of batteries that I think maybe developing better 36s where we can go to 136 or 236s,
right,
and developing and changing the way we do cranking batteries. We're definitely getting to where graphs are challenging the amp draw. Guys aren't sleeping their graphs. They're running 5 graphs and they're all running all day and burning 10 maps an hour, and your batteries just won't work.
Right.
And so you're going to have to learn to shut your graphs down, turn them back on. And a lot of times with live scope, we're seeing guys that aren't running a lot.
Yeah, that's a whole nother, wow. I didn't think, so I'm running 5 batteries in my boat right now. 4 lithium and one's an AGM.
Yeah, but you're not running like you used to.
No, and that's the truth.
So you're not charging that cranking battery.
Good point. Yeah, I noticed.
We got bigger amp alternators on everything. So it's really not what the products we're buying, it's you.
Right. We're changing the way. And that's something that I've thought about is going back to practice. And I thought about it heavily at Lake of the Ozarks or at Table Rock, was like anymore. I'm spending, I used to practice too fast. And now I feel like I'm practicing too slow in some aspects because I'm sitting there looking at live scope the entire time. And now I've gone from fishing, half the creek. And I'm like, gosh, I fished the whole day. I know everything in here now, and you're dead on. I spend more time not moving than I ever did before, I feel like.
Well, you're realizing there's fish where I was running off and leaving them. And that's because we've got our equipment dialed in. We're doing a better job with it. And I was not one to run a lot. When I needed to run, I could run a lot. I definitely was a guy that I would run to the other end of the lake. If you put me in on that end of the lake, I'd probably run the other end of the lake.
Right.
That's just my MO. If I could burn 100 miles, I was going to burn it, And so I just did that. That was just my style, and it'll probably be my style forever. I just like to get away from the crowd a little bit. It's the way I am. You put in at Table Rock, I'm running up to the river, Right. And I'm not talking about the James.
We're talking the river.
Yeah. And so I'm going to go, but and that's just my MO and the way I like to get away from people. And I find that those fish are just a little bit different because everybody hadn't beat them up, and that's one of the things I like. But today, I think that we're finding fish that aren't beat up. And nobody even knew they were out there hanging on those. If you were an offshore guy and haven't been to Bull Shoals and Table Rock now, we got a lot of fish out in the middle of these lakes.
It's crazy.
And we knew that all the time. That's why that spoon was such a bite for us,
Right.
Sonar is nothing new. We had it. It was a gay blade or a sonar we fished back then, which was just a bladed bait, And so we were fishing blades and spoons and not an ice bait, but similar to an ice bait. Years and years and years ago, or an old jig and eel, just a jig with a straight eel on it, an 8-ounce hair jig. And so we'd fish marabou, we'd fish hair jig and white hair jigs in the wintertime,
Right.
And those were just small baits that we fished back then that would make a difference. You're doing the same thing today. That's all kind of funny how it's came back. I can go down here to the garage sale 5 years ago and buy all the sonars I wanted for 50 cents, Wow. Now you got guys going to garage sales, buying sonars, paying premium price for them.
yeah, they're getting bid up on eBay or wherever else.
They're cranking them up, and so that's one of those, and they're really no different than some of the blade baits guys are making new today, but the price is higher,
right.
And so it's just what it is. But those fish were there. I think the sonar game's changing. I think it's there's going to be some regulations. We've got to have regulations, reasonable regulations. And it's like I said the other day, restrictor plates. But I think with batteries, I don't think we even have an idea of what we need to do yet. I'm actually going to go visit with a battery company next week or two and kind of lay out, understand more. And lithium's changing that game. But I don't know that we really know. And I think we need better backup, and we're running some little mini batteries for backup on some products. And so I think we're going to have something. You've got some chargers, and we'll not mention one because we won't get into that, but that actually have the ability to jump your battery.
Right. Right.
Personally, I got a little set of 6-foot jumper cables I carry in my boat. And so
Yeah.
I've always got a pair of jumper cables with me that's 4 or 5 foot long, 6 foot, that'll reach in the back end and get me. It won't get your buddy next door, but it'll get me, and that's who I'm trying to get,
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I carry a short pair just to jump off my trolling motor batteries, come around 12-volt batteries.
Yep.
But I think there's just a lot of work in the battery area that needs to be done. So you've asked a question. I've kind of taken you down a different path, and that's one we haven't got yet. I don't think we've got it figured out. I don't think anybody does. I know we don't, and I don't see anybody having the right combo. Then the next thing becomes, low electric. When will electric come out? I don't think we're going to see electric overnight, and it's not going to be probably in my career, and I don't think it's going to develop like it needs to in the time frame for us. And those are challenges that the automotive world's still going on and off with, because you look at the new Ford Lightning, is the Cybertruck that Tesla, and I think they've done a great job on the Cybertruck. They're obviously released this week, but I think you look at Ford's acceptance of a Lightning, guys want some mileage. You don't have it in battery.
And that's the hard part that I see, at least in the tournament market with bass boats. I mean, the recreational side, you're seeing it. You're seeing the electric pontoons. I've seen a couple of those in the water now.
Oh, we've got a sister company that does electric.
Right, right.
And they do electric towboats.
Wow.
They've got them at Tahoe.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you got electric towboats. They bought a company out of Austria, and unfortunate situation, the former owner died before they ever got it integrated. And so they wound up having to redo everything that he'd done, having to learn it. But, we've got a sister company that's tuned in on electric and batteries, and we could even make our own batteries if we wanted to. But it's not something we've broached into as a bass boat company.
Right.
And the cost of them, oh my.
Yeah.
So are we going to get there and develop it? I don't know. We're going to have to use things that are existing in this market. There's a particular outboard company that's a smaller outboard generating company in numbers, but all their products come out of another side of their business structure.
Interesting. Okay.
So they don't actually build any motors for engines.
Okay.
They build motors for that application, and they use them in the marine segment.
Okay. Okay.
And so it's a different world. And that's kind of the way I think electric's going to have to come in. But on graphs and batteries, which was your original question, I kind of went down a different rabbit hole on you. And I think that batteries are where we really have some room to move, that we can really improve. And the battery opportunities are there. They're changing.
Sure.
So I don't know that we got it. I don't know that it's going to be something that even a Mercury approves. But I think there's better systems that they're going to have to look at. And not only them, now they own a battery company now, and they've been pretty open on accepting lithium now, since they own a battery company that's a lithium battery company at Brunswick. So, maybe they go in and work on it. And obviously, Brunswick's one that always likes to tie up all the SKUs they can. We want to sell you every part we can. And they do a good job at that, but they do some good products too. So maybe they do that and get that battery figured out. And my phone may ring this afternoon and say, "What are you talking about?" Who knows? Yeah. So anyway, but we're going to talk to a battery company and start with a battery company in the next few weeks and try to figure some stuff out. And I really feel like that's where the weakness is in what we're trying to do today, Adam. And I think there's a lot of guys. You heard me say, if you listen to BTL, I'm working on resolutions on screens and really trying to understand so much. And I've been talking to some guys. I'm going to run a DD26 turret this year, and I hadn't run a turret before, so I'm going to run a DD26 turret, and going to run and figure that out, and run an AT2 and run a live scope 34-2.
Wow.
And so I'm going to have all that, and run a 360, and I'm going to do a 360 on the power pole, which nobody's done that I know of yet.
So you're doing it when you put a power pole in the water, essentially?
Yeah. See, the 360 comes on with water contact.
Right.
So there's pods on it that only activate when you put it in the water.
Right.
So when I'll drop a power pole, my 360 will come on, and I'll use it and open.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I don't have it on the bow of the boat. So I'm really trying to reconfigure the way it operates. Now, I'm actually going to run that cable all the way to the front for my unit.
Okay.
I'm going to run Solix units instead of Helix or Apex. and again, I'm driving screen resolution.
I think that's a big deal. Yeah.
I'm driving power and screen resolution. We're doing the same on my Garmin's, doing the same on my Lowrances, making decisions based on size and screen resolution, and trying to come in the middle. I'm also going to reduce my power supply burn because everybody wants to run 5 15-inch screens, 5 22-inch screens. Right. Well, you don't have a generator.
Right. Well, and that's kind of, and it depends on who you are as an angler and that kind of a thing. But I'm lightening my load this year too. Just from I've run, or this last 2 years, I've run a 360 and a live scope, and I find myself really spending more time on the forward facing. And so, in specific situations, especially offshore, I really like the 360, but same thing. It's like, I'm getting sick of lifting this thing up on the trolling motor with the turret. And if you add all that stuff in, I mean, you get some pretty heavy on the trolling motor. Like you're saying, I like the idea of going. I saw a guy at the Toyota Series Championship with the trolling motors on the back on the power poles to slow himself down. Have you heard of that? Like the braking?
Mm-hmm. Crazy, man. Yeah. He's got crappie brakes on it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, crappie brakes. That's the boys out of Mississippi doing that. They've been doing that several years. Now, I'm not ready for crappie brakes. That's a different game.
That's a lot. It's a lot to back.
But, I mean, I'm going to run a set of poles, and I'm going to run the 360 on the poles on the back, and so they'll be out of the water. It's out of the water. So, I mean, and I like what Power Pole's doing, trying to get to one pump. That's a really good mission. I mean, John and Amit, the guys at Power Pole, and I have talked about that for a number of years. We've been one of the ones that's been driving them to try to do single pump application. There's no reason.
Less space in the back, you're saying? Just
less battery, less space, less complications, less board problems.
True.
Yeah. Less connection problems.
Right.
All of it. It's just improving it, getting it down to less complex units. And so that's where that's one of the drivers for Power Pole have a single pump. And so that's all trying to make it easier and just consolidate everything in our products.
Totally. Great. No. Well, Rick, I know we've taken a bunch of your time here, so I certainly appreciate you taking the time out. I think that's a good way to end, is just always tinkering. And I love how you do that with your own rig and your own boat, and are always trying to figure out the best system. And it's a changing deal. And I agree. I mean, and X2, our battery company here at the Serious Angler, they have done a lot and have talked a lot about potential and new models coming out in the battery space, because it is such a changing game right now. And the deal is less space with more power is always going to yield better results, right? And that's
everybody they'll tell you the same thing. Batteries are pretty simple. They weigh more, they work better. Yeah, they're not hard. I don't care if it's your D-cell battery, if you're a flashlight. If it weighs more, it works better.
Right.
As long as they're made well, the quality product inside, it's a weight-driven application. And so, but I think that with what lithium's done, there's ways we can do it that just work better. And I don't know that we've got it. Maybe X2 figures it out, and that's your sponsor, and they're going to probably. You're going to pick the phone up and say, now, hey, what do you think about this?
Exactly.
But no, that's okay. That's how we develop, it's how we move forward, is somebody working on something somebody else isn't. And so we're trying. We don't have the technology to build batteries. One of the biggest lithium battery companies in China came into the market. I met them at SEMA years ago, and they came into the market and wanted us to private label. This was before anybody's doing lithium. This was a long time ago.
Really?
And they wanted us to private label the battery the second year I talked to them. And they'd done research on us, who we are, what the company was, and this is 10 or 15 years ago. Probably a little longer than that, because you know how time flies, probably more than 15 years ago.
Wow.
And so they'd done research on the company and figured out who we were. And the guy was pretty sharp. He had done some study on who we were and what we did. And we were innovative and we did this. And he said, we want you to do this. His theory was, if we started lithium batteries in the marine segment for trolling motors, then everybody'd follow. And they wanted to private label one for us. Well, we connected them to a friend of ours, and they're doing a pretty good job with them right now. But they're one of the premium lithium battery companies. And, maybe that's the guys we need to go back to, and because they're the guys building most of the components for some of these batteries. I mean, Most of these companies don't have their own battery companies. You know, they don't build their own product.
Right.
They're getting them built by somebody else, and it's going to be a lot of developing, and even developing with lithium storage. You know, they just announced in Arkansas they're breaking a well. Exxon's putting a well in South Arkansas. It's going to be the largest lithium well in the U.S.
Well, that's what I heard the other day. Like, I think it was Mobile One, but they've gone into they've created a lithium division, right? You're seeing oil companies go into this and saying, "Hey, this is a different resource that we need to put some time and effort to."
Yeah, I can't remember, but I want to say the acreage down there is like 130,000 acres. They're going to occupy in South Arkansas.
Holy cow!
So it's a huge amount of ground. They're going to have mineral rights to pull lithium out of and put a lithium mine in, and they're actually going to generate that lithium, pump it through and process it, and so they're going to pump it out of the ground.
Wow!
So that's what they're going to try to do, and re-inject the brine back in the ground, but they're going to try to pull the lithium out of the brine in South Arkansas down there where that oil field is. And so apparently, Exxon's done the work and they're going to try to develop it. And so we're going to see probably battery companies in the USA.
Interesting.
And, it's going to be kind of like solar companies. I mean, solar companies in the USA, they're at a huge disadvantage to China. So it has to be on development side. And we're subsidizing solar companies in Georgia. It's kind of an oxymoron because they're owned by companies in China.
Wow, that is crazy. Holy cow.
Yeah, so we're subsidizing companies building products in Georgia, building solar panels to build fuel, sell them at a disadvantage in the U.S. at a 2-to-1 pricing.
Wow.
Over the Chinese solar panels. Then we're subsidizing the Chinese companies to do it. I mean, I haven't figured this one out yet.
Yeah, that's wow. That sounds like politics. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of where it is. That was one of the bills that passed in 2022. But anyway, they're definitely got it. So I'm sure we're going to see similar things for battery development, similar things, just like we've got the tax rebates and tax credits on electric vehicles.
Right.
And so we're going to see all that development of batteries and storage solutions and all that. So there's a lot to come, and as a country, we're strong, and hopefully we get to take part in that and drive it forward. But a lot to come.
No doubt. Awesome. Well, Rick, thanks for your time, man. Always enjoy talking to you, and I'm sure we will run into each other down the road here soon enough and do another show for sure. But thanks for taking the time out, man, and giving us kind of.
I'm glad to, and thanks for having me there, Adam.
Absolutely, and I hope you and your family have wonderful. Take that week off for Christmas and everything else here coming up.
Call me sometime, and hope you have a good Christmas.
All right, man. Sounds good. We'll catch you later.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.